Two of the world's most famous paintings, the Mona Lisa and The Last Supper, both by the Italian painter Leonardo da Vinci, have been brought to life using high technology.
For more than 5 centuries, Leonardo da Vinci's Last Supper has fascinated the world with its brilliance. But behind its beauty lies something far more unsettling. Hidden shapes, peculiar figures, and cryptic details have sparked endless theories, whispers of secret codes deliberately embedded in the masterpiece. Now, with the help of advanced AI, researchers claim to have uncovered messages Da Vinci may have concealed on purpose, and what they reveal is chilling. These hidden layers seem to point to a darker side of history, one that was never meant to be seen by human eyes. This is the story of Leonardo and the masterpiece that changed history. Back in the late 15th century, Duke Ludovico Sforza of Milan commissioned a mural that would redefine art. He wanted Leonardo to cover the wall of the Dominican convent of Santa Maria del Grazie with a scene of Christ's final meal with his disciples. Between 1495 and 1498, Leonardo worked meticulously on what would become The Last Supper, a painting now regarded as one of the most analysed and mysterious works in human history. Unlike most artists of his day, Leonardo refused to follow the safe, traditional fresco method of painting on wet plaster. Instead, he experimented with oil and tempera on dry stone. This allowed him time to refine every gesture, every emotion, every hidden detail. But the choice came at a cost. The surface began to decay much faster than expected, demanding countless restorations across the centuries. From the very beginning, it seemed this masterpiece was destined not only to inspire awe, but also to trouble generations with its mysteries. What Leonardo painted was no simple dinner scene. He captured the very moment described in the Gospels, when Jesus announces that one of his closest followers will betray him. In that instant, the room erupts with disbelief, fear, and outrage. Some apostles lean back in shock, others spring forward in protest. The table becomes a storm of emotion, frozen forever in light and shadow. At nearly 29 feet wide and 15 feet tall, the mural dominated the convent refectory, towering above the monks as they quietly ate beneath it. For its time, Leonardo's composition was nothing short of revolutionary. Instead of rigid rows of solemn saints, he arranged the apostles in clusters of 3, weaving a rhythm of gestures, glances, and reactions. Each figure responds differently, yet together they form one sweeping arc of drama, an arc that inevitably draws the eye back to the still, resigned figure of Christ at the center. It wasn't just art. It was narrative, psychology, and suspense carved into stone and pigment. But as the centuries passed, the Last Supper became more than a sacred treasure. Whispers began to follow it. Observers claimed Leonardo had hidden messages within the mural, codes, symbols, even puzzles hidden in plain sight. Scholars and enthusiasts pored over the gestures, the hands, the background, searching for patterns. Some dismissed the theories as wishful thinking. But others, knowing Leonardo's passion for science and secret knowledge, believed he had left behind clues. And so, the question lingered for generations. If Da Vinci planted secrets inside the Last Supper, what were they? Now, with the power of AI, those secrets are beginning to emerge. And the very first clue is startling. Buried in the painting is not just an image, but a sound, waiting centuries to be heard. Can you hear the betrayal? In 2007, Italian researcher Giovanni Maria Palla noticed something unusual hidden within the Last Supper. The way the apostles' hands were positioned, along with the scattered pieces of bread on the table, felt far too intentional to be random. When he mapped their alignment across the long banquet table, a startling pattern emerged. It resembled musical notes written on a staff. At first, most dismissed it as coincidence. But years later, when AI revisited Palla's theory and tested the sequence through a modern organ simulation, the results were unsettling. The melody only made sense when played backwards, almost as if the painting itself demanded reversal. This was no ordinary tune. It was a secret key, meant to be unlocked centuries after Leonardo's time. and what it revealed was haunting. The music wasn't a hymn of joy or celebration. It was slow, heavy, mournful. Experts who listened described it as a requiem, a funeral dirge, a chilling prelude to the betrayal and death the painting so famously depicts. The discovery becomes even more disturbing when you remember Leonardo's lifelong obsession with music. He wasn't only a painter, he was also an inventor who designed instruments, studied harmonics, and approached sound with the same scientific precision he gave to anatomy or engineering. If anyone could hide a secret composition within brushstrokes, it was Da Vinci. But what AI uncovered went beyond a melody. It pointed to a coded message hidden within the very structure of the mural. Numbers dominate the design of the Last Supper. The apostles are arranged in groups of 3, echoing the Holy Trinity. Their clusters also fall into 4s, a likely nod to the 4 evangelists. At the center, Jesus forms a perfect triangle, framed by 3 windows rising behind him, symbols of divine perfection. Even the background reveals deeper layers of order. When carefully broken down, the entire composition mirrors the Fibonacci sequence: 1 table, 2 walls, 3 windows, 5 clusters of apostles, and 8 wall panels. The harmony of mathematics, faith, and geometry suggests Leonardo wasn't merely painting a final meal. He was encoding a message about order, destiny, and betrayal. Every detail whispers inevitability, as though Christ's death wasn't just foretold in Scripture, but inscribed in paint, form, and number. Not written in Scripture alone, but encoded in numbers and sound itself. The painting had been singing of death for centuries, and no one heard it. Generations admired the beauty of the Last Supper without realizing it carried a requiem. Only when AI peeled back the silence of time did the hidden music rise again. The timing feels almost intentional, as though Leonardo had composed his funeral hymn for an audience far in the future, an audience armed with technology sharp enough to unlock it. But one question refuses to fade. Was this Leonardo's private meditation on Christ's betrayal, or a warning meant for the world at large? The fact that the melody only works in reverse makes the discovery even more unsettling. To hear the truth, one must invert the natural order, twisting harmony into dissonance. Yet, as haunting as this secret song is, it's only part of the mystery. AI revealed that Leonardo left even darker clues, hiding not in the shadows, but in plain sight, resting on the table itself. The mystery of the fish. At first glance, the food in the Last Supper seems ordinary: bread, wine, and a scattering of dishes. Nothing remarkable. But when advanced AI analyzed the fine details of the mural, one item stood out: the fish placed in front of the Apostle Andrew. Historically, its presence makes sense. Many of Jesus' followers were fishermen, and fish became one of the earliest and most powerful Christian symbols. During times of Roman persecution, believers used the ichthys, the simple outline of a fish, to secretly identify one another, a hidden sign of faith when open worship could mean death. In this light, the fish on Leonardo's table could symbolize resilience, secrecy, and the humble beginnings of Christianity itself. But AI's pattern recognition raised a more startling question. What kind of fish did Leonardo actually paint? Some art historians believe the fish resembles an eel, while others insist it looks more like a herring. At first, this detail might seem trivial, but in symbolic art, no detail is ever truly small. In European folklore, eels were often linked with slipperiness and elusiveness, symbols of deception or moral ambiguity. If Leonardo intended it as an eel, the choice could point toward betrayal or hidden danger, perfectly fitting for the story unfolding at the table. Herring, on the other hand, carried a very different cultural meaning. In Northern Europe, herring was cheap and widely eaten by the poor, especially during seasons of fasting. Because of this, it became tied to ideas of poverty, humility, and spiritual simplicity. If Leonardo painted herring, the message could have been that the apostles came from modest backgrounds and that true richness is found not in material wealth but in faith and self-denial. Whether eel or herring, the fish on the table is far more than a piece of food. It acts as a subtle symbol, a quiet clue woven into the fabric of the Last Supper. Another layer of Leonardo's mystery, speaking in silence through shape and symbolism. Even more strangely, researchers using AI image analysis believe they've identified small, round, orange-colored objects on the table. Objects that look very much like citrus fruit. But here's the problem. There's no record of oranges being part of the Last Supper, and citrus fruits weren't even present in 1st century Jerusalem. If these really are oranges, their appearance in Leonardo's painting is both out of place and deeply symbolic. Interpretations vary. Some scholars suggest Leonardo may have been intentionally shifting the scene away from its Jewish roots, placing Jesus and the apostles in a more universal, timeless setting rather than a strictly historical one. Others see something more provocative. In 15th century Italy, there was a well-known story in which a meal of eels and oranges represented indulgence and gluttony. If that was Leonardo's inspiration, then the message is sharp. Even beneath a sacred ritual, there may lie hypocrisy, a warning about men of faith who preach devotion but fall easily to temptation. AI added yet another dimension to this theory. According to its analysis, the pairing of fish and oranges in the painting doesn't look accidental at all. It appears deliberate. Unlike bread and wine, which clearly symbolize Christ's body and blood, these other foods don't fit the ritual. Instead, they seem designed to confuse, to unsettle, and to push the viewer to question what's really happening at that table. It's as if Leonardo was daring his audience to look closer, to see that what seems holy on the surface might also carry hidden warnings. The contrast is striking. Bread and wine sit at the center of the painting, the very heart of the Christian Eucharist, symbols of sacrifice, redemption, and unity. Leonardo painted them clearly, openly, unmistakably. Yet surrounding these sacred elements, he added foods that do not belong at that table. The message is difficult to ignore. Even at the holiest moment, corruption, denial, and secret meaning sit only inches away. This unsettling contrast raises a haunting question. If Leonardo was bold enough to weave hidden puns and misplaced symbols into Christ's final meal, what else might he have concealed in plain sight? I would eventually point to the figures themselves. Their hands, gestures, and shadows, where the most disturbing clues of all emerge. The spilled salt and Judas in the shadows. Of all the details hidden within the Last Supper, one has chilled viewers more than most: the salt. Right in front of Judas Iscariot, AI identified a small pile of spilled salt scattered across the table. To modern eyes, it may seem insignificant, but in the ancient world, spilling salt was considered a grave omen, a sign of misfortune, even a curse unleashed. In Christian tradition, Judas is the ultimate betrayer. By pairing him with overturned salt, Leonardo seems to declare that Judas's treachery was not just inevitable, it was destiny. Leonardo also painted Judas in a way that sets him apart from every other apostle. While the others are illuminated in light, Judas's face is cloaked in shadow, nearly erased from the gathering. To some art historians, this reflects what Leonardo called the movement of the soul, a visual descent into darkness. Judas becomes a man consumed by his choice before he even acts, a figure marked by fate. Look closer and the signs of betrayal multiply. In one hand, Judas clutches a small purse, a blunt nod to the 30 pieces of silver he would be paid for his betrayal. His other hand reaches toward the bread on the table, echoing Jesus' own prophecy during the meal. The one who dips his hand with me in the dish is the betrayer. Leonardo freezes that prophecy in time, showing Judas caught in the act. And then there's the salt at his elbow. Across Europe, breaking bread and sharing salt was more than hospitality. It was a sacred bond of trust and loyalty. By knocking over the salt, Judas doesn't just cause an accident. He symbolically breaks that covenant, betraying not only Christ, but the very brotherhood of the apostles. Leonardo paints Judas as though the curse has already taken hold, as if his betrayal was sealed long before the kiss in Gethsemane. But Judas was not the only omen Leonardo hid at the table. Near the bread and wine rests another symbol, a pomegranate, its red seeds bursting through the shell. To ancient audiences, this fruit carried ominous meaning. In Greek myth, Persephone ate just a few seeds and was forever bound to the underworld. In Christian thought, the seeds resemble drops of blood, foreshadowing Christ's sacrifice. In Leonardo's hands, the pomegranate becomes a double-edged symbol, both Christ's lifeblood offered for humanity and the doom Judas sets in motion. Together, these details transform Judas into something more than a man. He becomes an omen made flesh, a walking curse, standing among the sacred, while every gesture and symbol around him screams of disaster. Leonardo does not paint him as a wavering disciple who later gave in to greed. He paints him as though his betrayal was already written, etched into destiny, long before silver ever touched his palm. And yet, as chilling as Judas's portrayal is, some argue Leonardo went even further. They believe he hid entire scenes and figures inside the Last Supper, images that remained invisible for centuries until eye by eye dragged them out of the shadows. A painting within the painting? In 2007, computer analyst Slavisa Pesci conducted one of the first high-tech experiments on the Last Supper. His method was unusual. He took a digital copy of the mural, flipped it horizontally, and superimposed the two images together. What appeared was not just a mirrored trick of color, but what seemed to be an entirely new picture hidden in plain sight. Pesci claimed the fusion revealed the outline of a woman holding a child, a sight that immediately fueled whispers of hidden bloodlines, forbidden unions, and a lineage the church may have wished to keep buried. To skeptics, it looked like coincidence. But to many, the human eye could not help but recognize the unmistakable shape of a mother and child where none should exist. AI later expanded on Pesci's discovery. It identified a shadowy figure at the edge of the table resembling a Knight Templar. For centuries, the Templars have been linked to legends of the Holy Grail, and now, in Leonardo's painting, their ghostly presence seemed to stare back at the viewer, cloaked in secrecy. More revelations followed. I suggested that a faint chalice could be discerned before Christ, the very grail that generations had sought. Some experts even argued Leonardo embedded a self-portrait within the central structure of the scene, as if daring history to notice him hidden at the heart of his greatest riddle. Then the mystery deepened further. AI compared Van Gogh's Café Terrace at Night, 1888, to Leonardo's masterpiece, and the similarities were startling. Under enhanced digital layers, Van Gogh's composition seemed to echo the Last Supper. A central long-haired figure surrounded by 12 others, with a lone, shadowy presence lingering at the edge. Whether this was a conscious homage or an unconscious echo, it reinforced an unsettling idea, that Leonardo's supper scene was more than a painting. It was a code, one so powerful that artists across centuries could not resist revisiting it. The possibility of a painting within the painting has haunted researchers ever since. Are these just coincidences of symmetry, or carefully planted messages designed to survive through time? Every digital scan seems to reveal something new, almost as if Da Vinci left behind a secret map that could only be unlocked with modern technology. Yet, none of these theories compare to the most unsettling discovery of all. Because AI's most shocking finding doesn't point to a hidden cup, a shadowy knight, or a buried code. It points to the person seated right beside Christ. And that person may not be who we've always believed. Was it really John or Mary Magdalene? For centuries, people looked at Leonardo da Vinci's The Last Supper and saw the familiar scene: Jesus at the center, surrounded by his 12 apostles. But when AI software sharpened the image, enhanced facial outlines, and ran symmetry checks, it noticed something that startled even the most skeptical viewers. The figure to Jesus' right, the one traditionally identified as John, did not look entirely male. The AI highlighted features long overlooked: flowing hair, a soft jawline, and the delicate curve of the neck. It even compared posture and proportions against Da Vinci's other works and found they leaned more toward the feminine than the masculine. What had long been dismissed as John's youthful, androgynous look suddenly took on a far more disturbing possibility. Perhaps this wasn't John at all. Perhaps Da Vinci had painted Mary Magdalene sitting beside Jesus. If true, the implications are staggering. It would suggest that Da Vinci embedded, right in the open, the idea that Jesus shared his final meal not only with his disciples, but also with the woman many believe was his closest companion, and possibly much more. Some argue this was Leonardo's quiet rebellion, a way of preserving a truth the Church worked tirelessly to erase. Traditional historians fiercely resist this reading. They remind us that every Gospel describes only the 12 male apostles at the Last Supper. Mary Magdalene, though central to Jesus' ministry, is never placed at the table. They also note that Renaissance painters, including Leonardo, often gave John softer, more feminine features to symbolize purity. Da Vinci himself favored this style in many of his male portraits, and yet AI's reconstruction made the debate harder to ignore. The software compared the mysterious figure's face with dozens of authenticated female portraits by Leonardo, including sketches believed to be of Mary Magdalene. The match was haunting. The tilt of the chin, the arch of the brows, even the faint hint of a smile, details lined up with unnerving precision. When the robes were digitally color-corrected, their folds looked less like apostolic garments and more like a feminine dress. The possibility that Mary Magdalene sat beside Jesus in the Last Supper lingers like a shadow. Whether it's a misinterpretation or a buried truth, Da Vinci seems to have painted more than a meal. He painted a mystery that refuses to stay silent. If Leonardo truly placed Mary Magdalene at the very heart of the mural, what was he trying to tell us? The thought opens a fascinating possibility. Perhaps he deliberately painted her not as a distant figure in the background, but right beside Christ, in a position of closeness and undeniable importance. If that's the case, the implications are striking. Was Leonardo quietly suggesting that Mary's role was far greater than history has acknowledged? Was he offering a subtle critique of how the Church shaped the biblical story, trimming away voices it did not want remembered? Whether it was symbolic, a creative experiment, or a deliberate challenge to convention, the image forces us to rethink old assumptions about one of the most familiar scenes in Christianity. And yet, that was only the beginning. Because once AI began probing deeper, mirroring the painting line by line, it uncovered layers that no one expected. A satanic reflection in the mirror. When researchers fed the Last Supper into AI programs, they decided to test a curious idea. What if the mural were mirrored, as though folded onto itself like the turning of a page? The result was shocking and deeply unsettling. When the mirrored version of the Last Supper was analyzed, the apostles' faces began to shift. Calm expressions became unnervingly blank or even pained. Some seemed to blur into skeletal outlines or hybrid shapes resembling animals, dogs, horses, even strange human beast forms. Though not overtly terrifying, these images suggested a hidden story beneath the familiar scene, as if Leonardo had painted a second, more primal and emotional layer behind the one we see. Then came the most startling revelation. At the center, where Jesus traditionally sits as the symbol of peace and sacrifice, the mirrored alignment revealed a faint outline of a horned, goat-like figure. Its abstract features echoed classic depictions of the devil. The contrast was striking, a silent, shadowy echo of the serene Christ known to the world for centuries. Some dismissed it as coincidence, but others were deeply unsettled. The discovery was not only about the shape itself, but what it might imply about Leonardo's layered intentions. The mirrored analysis of the Last Supper sparked debate. Some say Leonardo subtly mocked the faith of his time, hiding blasphemy in plain sight. Others see dual meanings, a reminder that light and darkness coexist, even in sacred moments. Skeptics argue it's simply pareidolia, the brain finding patterns in randomness. Either way, the mirrored images add a new layer of mystery, inviting viewers to look deeper. AI also revealed something long overlooked. Not a single figure wears a halo. Scholar Renzo Manetti suggests this was intentional, presenting Jesus as mortal, not divine. The apostles too appear rugged and human, possibly modelled on real Milanese citizens, even criminals. Judas's harsh features may reflect a literal life of betrayal, and some believe Leonardo even included himself as James the Less, raising questions about his role: witness, commentator, or something more. Not all interpretations are dark. By emphasizing raw emotion over idealized holiness, Leonardo may have been showing that true sanctity lies in our choices, relationships, and flaws. Betrayal, when examined closely, becomes part of redemption. AI has unlocked perspectives previously hidden beneath centuries of reverence. The Last Supper remains a masterpiece that defies explanation. Whether seen as heretical or genius, it challenges us to look closer at the painting and at ourselves.